We have so many musicians in this industry. So you play guitar. How long have you been playing it? Is it professional, or is it like you picked up the guitar when you were a teenager?
I started when I was 10, so it's been 28 years.
Pre-teenage.
And it is funny what you're saying. Like we've been blown away on our team. We're about 24 full-time, 6 part-time now, and I'd say 2/3 of the team are quasi-professional level musicians. So one
do
day
you
when
have
we
a
have
band?
we do not. I've had mixed results in my past with corporate bands, so it's not something I'm going to push at Driver.
I don't know. Hey, listen, there are those that have like a, what is it, a band hero, guitar hero, and you can have an actual band. And I'm sure that there are enough, talented people in Driver that can actually come together.
Maybe
What would be a good name?
Maybe if things don't work out for Driver, we can that can be our pivot. We're just the first venture backed wedding band.
Wedding band.
That's the only way to be sure to make money in the industry. So
go with me on this. What would be the name of the band? The Driver, whatever wedding band. What would that be?
It'd be called the Ford Collision Alerts.
Okay. The wedding band. Yeah. Oh my God. I can just imagine the Ford Collision band. A wedding band. Yeah, that can work. It's up and coming. You can see the collision coming in.
That's right.
Cool. So that's your hobby, and you became a dad recently.
I did, which has been a second startup, right?
A second startup, yeah.
So I often joke with people, I'd rather be awake at 3 a.m. working on the baby than awake at 3 a.m. just stressed out about some contract that we're trying to close. So it's I think startups are a good trainer for parenting, but it is a lot to do both at once.
And nurturing, changing diapers, and then you need to deal with your kid as well. So
that's right, exactly.
It's okay. Enough with the jokes. I think that's a good warm up. Oh, no, actually, we need to do the introduction. Rashid, please give us a quick background about yourself. How,
Sure.
From, I think that you went to Dartmouth, that's where you did your undergrad.
Right.
From that to insurance Driver, what is Driver? And then we'll talk about you. Let's start with Driver.
Perfect. All right. So Driver is a AI-driven mobility company. What does that actually mean? I'm sure 30 people say that. We develop products that we feel will democratize car safety while providing the capabilities of a connected vehicle to everyone. And by that, what we actually mean in practical terms is that we've rolled out a AI-driven Dashcam app. So all you have to do is go to the App Store, type in Dashcam, we're the first result now, and you download the Driver app. And thanks. Yeah, it's been a journey to get there. But basically, if you have a car mount, phone mount in your car, you can buy one of ours from right through the app. We have a very cheap one that we've carefully gotten the supply chain worked out on. And so basically you can mount your phone. It will use the external facing camera to record what's on the road. It will use the internal facing camera to monitor you for drowsiness and distraction, which are the top causes of car accidents and car death. It monitors the road, not just to have a recording if you get in an accident, but to actually try to prevent an accident from happening. So using similar technology that you might find in a $100,000 car like a Tesla or a Mercedes S-Class, we look for cars, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcycles, buses, trucks. I think we've got zebras in there just as kind of like a fun joke. And if we think that you're distracted or drowsy, playing with the phone, and you're approaching an object at an unsafe kind of interaction, we alert you. So that's really the kind of mission there from a sort of impact perspective, is how do we kind of take this thing that is the only top 10 cause of death in the world. It causes over 1 million deaths every year, over 50 million injuries every year. How do we take that and solve it today? Not, hey, when this technology trickles down from $100,000 cars to regular cars. When you look at the average car age, even in the US, it's 12 and a
Mm-hmm.
half years old. In other markets, it's much older. That number is actually getting worse. And so what we really realized is that there is this amazing car safety technology out there, but it's not just a top of the pyramid thing. It's like the very tip of the pyramid are the only people who are getting access to it. So how do we kind of democratize access to that, both within the US, but also globally? And that's really the product. And then we also have a whole suite of services that we're rolling out as a driver premium, subscription, which gives you cloud storage, roadside assistance anywhere in the country, gas discounts through sort of a booster program on top of Gas Buddy, which is a cool app that people might know about, and improved safety alerts, and just a whole bunch of different services and features that are coming down the pipeline. We even have a carbon neutrality offset program coming down the pipe where you could sign up to
No
basically
kidding.
plant trees for how much you drive and offset your carbon 100%, or even sponsor so you offset someone else's carbon as well as your own. So that's kind of a cool program. So basically
Okay.
all the things that you might get in a Tesla, let's say, were
Mm-hmm.
brought to your phone.
And I'll try to keep it linear, which sometimes just doesn't really work. So let's start with zebras. What's the story with the zebras?
The story of the zebras is we were building our first model,
Mm-hmm.
and we noticed that it wouldn't be that hard to include some animals in there. And so we kept a collection of them in there and just kind of had a little internal competition of like, when would an alert go off related to one of those types of animals? And actually, one of our team members went on one of those like driving safari things in Florida, and there was a zebra that crossed the road, and that set it off. So now it's there to stay.
So you'll just pop up a zebra on the screen, or
Yeah, so it was basically just like a collision alert, but the
okay,
phone knew what that object was. So
okay, just making sure. Because, well, it's pretty cool. You have wild zebras in the US. People got a zebra somehow. I think that in California here we had all the Hearst Castle. He had like a zoo, and they are roaming
yep,
free there. They have all kinds of animals. I know that in Texas they have, well, according to what I heard in one of the Joe Rogan's episodes, that they have roaming wild animals there.
yep.
Yeah, you should be alert to zebras. They are dangerous. Yeah,
The more realistic one is that we're working on kind of incorporating into the alert system is deer. Right,
yeah,
that's a real
that.
thing, particularly in the northern U.S. And
Hmm.
I think it's an example of where certainly if you have the money, a car like a Tesla that has 360 vision around it and is fully aware of its surroundings is priceless. However, what's interesting is that when you look at most cars, even today with forward collision alerts, they're looking at some objects like a car, and it takes them so many years to roll out a new object like a bicycle or a pedestrian, right? Just due to their own internal process and
Hmm.
building cycles and safety limitations and things like that. Whereas we can spin up new objects overnight effectively. And so we think, for example, deer is one that we're going to be alerting for that long before car companies.
And don't forget that. So if you are already dealing with Tesla and democratizing and actually making any car to give them the functionality, not 100%, but the functionality that Tesla, uh, Mercedes, BMW, and other of the luxury cars have in terms of protection and all the different sensors, it was like, hey, here's one sensor. Now we are democratizing it. So there is a lot to talk about it, and then all the AI that you have behind the scenes. But let's talk about something that most people will consider as the immediate competitor, and those are all the dash cams that are already there that you can buy for,
Right.
I don't know, 20 maybe. I actually don't know. I don't have one.
Yeah,
So
it's actually pretty interesting. So dash cams are surprisingly expensive. So they're usually in the $50 to $100 range for just a really simple one that just looks outside of the car, doesn't
mhm.
have night vision, low light capabilities, safety alerts, anything like that. And then they kind of jump to like the 200, 250 range for something that's like a pretty good camera, 400 for like a GoPro, right? Like when you see
Yeah.
people professionally use, right? And then there's this huge jump to dash cams that actually have safety capabilities. And there's some great products out there like Lytix and Mobileye and Nauto.
Hmm.
Um, and then maybe if you have a huge fleet and you're rolling in cash, those solutions make sense, right? It's a
Hmm.
permanent fixed thing, right? Our kind of thesis is that when you look at the lower end devices, they don't last. So tons of our users are people who have gone through 4 or 5 hardware dash cams, and they've just been frustrated at the lack of kind of low light capability, the lack of quality, and then that they actually end up dying at some point. And if you have a problem, there's no customer service, right? It's just like a factory in China,
Yep.
pummeling it through Amazon. And so what we want to create is like the Zappos type experience that no one's had with this kind of in-car capability where you call us up and a real human answers, walks you through how to set it up, what mount do you need, how can we help you? And then from a, user experience perspective, if you are in an accident, or even if you just see something cool or have a fun drive you want to share on Reddit with other car enthusiasts, what have you. Uh, and I actually had this issue. I got a GoPro and rented a kind of fun car on Turo, which is like an awesome
Yep.
platform I love, and filmed myself for a birthday party. My wife rented me a fun car and drove around and filmed it. And at the end, I've got an SD card with like 20 gigabyte video file, right? That I then have to load into iMovie and edit it up, and like some of it was upside down because of how I put the camera, and then I got to compress it and put it on YouTube. So our whole approach is like that's not a feasible thing, particularly if you've just been in an accident or you want to share a quick video. We have what's called the driver cloud. It automatically uploads your trips to the cloud. You can easily choose segments of that. You have full control over your data, and you can choose, I'm going to share this segment of it with either like my boss or my insurance company if there's an incident, or for fun to my friends and to Reddit and things like that. And with it, you get all this cool data and analytics that you can see that you don't just get with a dash cam, where you can actually see, oh, wow, I'm driving on this path. Here's the speed I was going, the G force, the weather, the whole thing.
Okay. So this is a perfect segue to talk about insurance. I met you guys in InsurTech Hartford or a symposium. And the question is, okay, great, everyone is like, oh, if I'll take the camera, now I have a proof. Whose fault is it? But how is the is that the real thing that insurance companies are looking at? Do how the insurance companies even work with? Who are you working with in the insurance companies? Is it claims? Is it underwriting? People care about it, or is it like, it's fine. It's just a proof. Submit it to the police, and that's it.
Right. Great question. Yeah. So I think the best quote is one of our, so Liberty Mutual invested in our Series A round, Liberty Mutual Strategic Ventures, and they introduced us to their claims team. And someone on their claims team had the best line. He basically said, having video plus all the other data that you guys pull together around, motion, trajectory, speed, location, all that, accelerometer, is a mic drop moment when it comes to a claims issue. So a classic example that has happened to so many of our users
Mm-hmm.
is that they're driving along and then someone cuts in front of them in a lane and then they hit the back of that person's car. Or they're driving along and someone does something totally weird and hits the brakes and they rear end them. And in traditional insurance, that is the back person's fault, the driver behind's
Yeah.
fault 100% of the time, especially if that person in front just happens to not be someone who's going to be truthful about this situation. It's so
Okay.
easy for them to say, I was driving along, guy behind me rear-ended me, he must have been drunk or not paying attention or,
Mm-hmm.
sleeping. Right? With the video and all the associated data, you can instantly see what happened. And so we've had so many outcomes where even just dealing with the cops on the scene, the temperature of the interaction between the cop and the person with the dash cam completely changes once they see the footage. But most importantly, on the claims side, as an individual, particularly from a, well, actually, it doesn't really matter. If you're a regular driver, if you're a rideshare driver, a sharing economy, a fleet driver, your worst nightmare is that the claims process takes 6 months. You don't get paid out. You have to end up going to court, all this stuff. Even if it's, the fastest version of that, it's usually many months.
Mm-hmm.
With the video, that can just be a matter of days, right? The other side will back away completely. You've got perfect proof. Saves the insurance insurance company tons of money, and it saves the driver time and money as well. So that's really that's the most obvious immediate use case scenario.
How many drivers do you have now?
Yeah, so we're coming up on about 50,000 around the country.
Nice.
We've done very minimal. Thanks. We've done very minimal marketing globally. We've been downloaded in 170 countries now. Again, with no marketing globally.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've been really doing is just sort of working through some small partnerships, doing some pilots, working with fleets, getting organic downloads online, doing some marketing testing just to see what people were most excited about. And then this month, we're actually rolling out the full driver premium model within the app. And then at the end of the quarter is when we're really going to start our kind of.
And what does it mean? What is the premium product?
Yeah. So basically, for free, you can get a dash cam. And we're always going to have ways to get access to the safety features if someone can't afford them. That's kind of our mission stance. Right?
Mm-hmm.
On the same token, we do have a business here, and we've got very expensive machine learning folks on our team.
I'm sure.
And so we do have to pay the bills. And so the premium version allows you to contribute to, the kind of safety vision we have. And in exchange, you get cloud capability, the ability to share trips and drives with family members, with bosses, with insurance companies if you want. Store your trips for future reference, share with friends. Roadside assistance, and it's a really great nationwide roadside program where basically within 30 minutes you get an Uber-like experience. You can see the driver coming to get you. If for some reason they fall through, it automatically switches you to another driver. So that's great. Gas discounts and a whole bunch of early access to features that are coming down the pipe.
So that will be a shout out to Honk. They're based here in Los Angeles, and you're using them. And of course, because you're turning into that, I don't know, not a channel, but a central point in the ecosystem. So you'll have, of course, Honk. You'll have the insurance companies. How do people learn and know about this application, and why Liberty Mutual? Was it Liberty Mutual? Yeah.
Yep.
Why did they say it's like, we want that, and just go spread the word of a safety, and let's make sure that the world is a better place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think word of mouth is powerful with our app, particularly as we have a fun kind of driver score in there that is just used for coaching to the driver. But it's immediately you see family members being like, oh, well, I'm going to get a better driver score than everyone else in my family, so let me force them to use it.
So there is an actual gamification element to it?
Correct. Exactly. And it's still in the very early days, but it's something where we feel that, there's just so much money, and it's all correctly intended, has been spent on, anti-distracted driving, anti-drinking and driving type campaigns, which are very important from like a public knowledge perspective. But very little has been done to actively give someone feedback on their driving in a positive, not like your boss is spying on you kind of way.
Important.
Right? And so we think we have the opportunity to use AI and computer vision on the edge, on your own device, right? Everyone's got this like supercomputer in their pocket, and all it's doing is distracting them from driving instead of helping them be a better driver. And we think we can really help with things like, hey, here's how you brake compared to the average person. And if you did it in this other smoother way, you'd actually save money on gas. You'd be safer. You could save lives, both your own and others. Here's how you interact with other vehicles. If you were one car length farther away from other vehicles, you'd be 87% less likely to be in a rear end collision, things like that. And we can do it in real time.
you're not coming from a technology background. How did you build?
It's a little
It's a
mixed. Yeah,
mix.
I'm kind of a jack of all trades.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I did make the first version of the app, but luckily I've stopped coding for everybody.
Well, there is the app, and then there is the AI that sits behind it. If it's the computer vision,
Yeah,
or if you're talking about collisions and other stuff, you have actually combination of several things that the AI needs to identify, from the computer vision and understanding collision and moving objects and recognizing them. And if it's even, I think that's the Tesla's biggest problem is with static objects
yeah,
in contradiction
that's
to
right.
moving objects. And then you're talking about
Right.
a facial understanding if someone is dozing off, or just
Yeah.
understanding the telematics of the vehicle itself, how you brake, how you're keeping your distance. Those are so many different data points and different solutions. So how did you build the team?
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. And I always laugh when people say like, "Well, couldn't I just use the camera app on my phone?" And I'm like, "Go for it." This is such a hard problem to solve. And I think what, like you said, we're very focused on trying to solve real problems today around why people get in an accident, which involves what's going on outside of the car, what the car is doing, what the driver's doing. We're not actually trying to achieve like autonomy, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, no,
We're
no.
trying to be very practical here. And so, from a team perspective, I think two things have been really important. One is the mission has attracted really great people who are actually very passionate about solving this problem. And it's lucky for us, it's this nice combo of something that means a lot to people, but then also it's a fun real technical challenge. So if you're a AI engineering, cloud and edge, nerd, you're gonna like it. All right, so that's a nice duality. Uh, we've certainly looked for people who have a lot of experience and it's not their first rodeo kind of thing. And I think traditionally we would have had a lot of trouble recruiting that kind of caliber of team if we didn't have this real mission that we're trying to solve. So we have a lot of people who have kind of done it. They've crushed it in a business in a very straightforward kind
Mm-hmm.
of product perspective. But then they're like, here's a chance for me to like really have a social impact as well as a technical and business impact. And we've relied a lot on their networks of, hey, if there's one person I've worked with in the last 20 years that I would love to team up with, right? And then we create a group dynamic and we harass that person until they join the company.
Let's recruit that guy.
Yeah, they don't even know what's coming.
Yeah.
I think even our CTO, someone who I went to high school with, who had the perfect background for this
Mm-hmm.
company, and I talked to him for 3 years about joining,
We are going to
and he
smother
loved
you
his
to
job.
death.
Yeah,
So much
yeah,
love until you'll give up.
exactly.
No, it's
Yep,
like flowers,
we got
coffee. It's
him.
like, what do you want? Pillow. There you go.
Yeah, yes.
No, that interesting strategy for recruitment. Yeah, no, and apparently it works. It's good.
Well, and the other thing we really look for, frankly, in case anyone's listening who might be interested in joining our mission, is people who are passionate about it, people who have experience, but then people who also bring an attitude to work that part of their job is to have a positive attitude, to think about what's
Mm-hmm.
possible as opposed to just pointing out all the problems with something, and that have great interpersonal skills and can weather the storm of when you're building stuff that's this technical, you're going to have disagreements, right? And particularly in a remote environment, as our most of our team is remote, you just have to be very open to how do you interact with folks and keep a positive environment, which I think is not necessarily always the traditional tech startup vibe,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. So people come to the office. Is there an office?
There is not. We have a couple
Oh.
satellite
Mm-hmm.
offices in different locations, but we have folks all up and down the East Coast from New Hampshire down to New Jersey. We've got folks in the Midwest, on the West Coast, people in China, Hong Kong, Italy, Portugal. So
All
we've
over
got
the
a
place.
pretty good
That's
coverage. Malaysia.
Yeah. Wow. That's most definitely a big spread.
Egypt and Pakistan too.
Egypt
So
and
actually, I think we've got
Pakistan.
a good spread. Yeah.
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 I had a team back in the day in Malaysia, I had in China, and I worked with, well, across the, I would say across the globe. Portugal is always an interesting place. Didn't have in
Yeah.
Pakistan as well. Never had the opportunity to work with a team in Egypt. One day in the future. Okay, so 50,000 users. How many team members?
We've got 24
24
full
full
time
time.
and half dozen part time. Yeah.
And how much money did you raise? If you can share, you can give a range.
Uh, yeah, no, happy to. To date, we've raised over
10
10
million.
million.
Been around for 4 years? Oh,
2018
yeah, four
launched.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
not bad.
So,
So that's anything else? Because it's time to do the introduction to you. Because I don't know, I was going with that. I was about to start with your
oh no,
introduction.
sure, that's
We talked
perfect.
about the
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
We
Yes,
and now
sir.
let's talk about Rashid. So how did you end up in
Sure.
insurance, which is not really insurance, but it has a little bit of insurance in it?
Yeah, it's so funny. Insurance was actually, just to be honest, like never part of the roadmap when we started the company. I personally, I grew up between Nigeria and the U.S. actually, in northern Nigeria and southern New Hampshire, both places where I would say the kind of trickle
Mm-hmm.
down effect was not really happening. And so I was always interested in economic development and kind of social impact, and particularly how does entrepreneurship and business help create a better environment for people. I could see clearly that some countries were performing and lifting people out of poverty in a way that others weren't. That was very interesting to me. At the same token, I was always interested in technology and car safety. My father was actually in an accident in Nigeria when I was young, where he had borrowed a friend's car that happened to be one of his like wealthier friends who had imported a Volvo, and he got T-boned, and people in the car that hit him actually passed
Mm-hmm.
away. And he always said, if I had been in another car, I would have died. But because my friend happened to have this Volvo and had access to this like, you know, elusive vehicle, I was probably the only Volvo in Nigeria at the time. It saved my life. And so I was always kind of aware of the impact of both the impact of car safety, but also that it's not a fair thing. Not everyone has access. Most
No,
people don't have
of course not.
access to it, basically. And so I ended up getting into technology. I had my own computer company in high school, building and selling computers, took some APCS, but ended up getting really pulled into the economic development world in college. Um, Went into management consulting after college because I thought that would get me a great job at like the World Bank or the IFC after B school. But again, kind of got pulled into this combination of entrepreneurship and impact by working at a large microfinance bank called Finca International. Did that for a number of years. Was really impressed by the investors there. Ended up working in a family office and then a VC fund that invested in social impact and entrepreneurship and things like that. And that's where I got back into kind of data and AI and what that means for safety, and ended up investing in a company called Cloud
Mm-hmm.
Factory, which does the labeling of AI kind of data for a lot of machine learning based companies, including autonomous car companies. And that's where I really came full circle and was like, yes, Elon Musk is coming to save the world. And everyone, he says that by the end of 2016, everyone's going to have access to an autonomous car. It's going to be low cost shared asset that goes around and picks you up and just takes you where you need. You don't actually have to buy the full asset. And this is going to save millions of lives worldwide, and everyone's going to have it. And the deeper and deeper I went in studying it, the more I realized that this was like marketing BS. And so in sort of 2016, I started to work on this idea of, okay, well, how do you deliver this in a democratized fashion as opposed to banking on this pipe dream of full autonomy for everybody? And it was a very unpopular perspective in 2016. I think everyone was pretty bought into the idea that what Elon was saying was going to happen by the end of the year or by the end of 2017 or by the end of 2018. And really and that really affected us in the early days. Every time we'd pitch someone, they'd say like, yeah, but we're all going to have autonomous
Yeah,
cars
of
next year.
course. Two of them.
And finally, by like 2020, the tide shifted, and you saw all these people saying, "Oh, this is actually a much harder problem than we realized. It's going to take a long time." And then I started to ask, well, what do we do in the meantime? How do we save lives today?
You know,
So that's my background and how it all tied back into Driver, I guess.
I admire people like Elon and other, I would say, visionaries that they can sell a vision and without flinching. You know that it's not true, right? It's not
Yes.
true. It's
Yeah,
not,
exactly.
it doesn't, the rubber doesn't connect to the road there. But the vision will make it, not today, 10 years from now. But you cannot sell,
Right.
oh, listen, in 10
Right.
years, this is going to happen. No, you need to
Right.
sell, tomorrow it's going to happen. And the following day, it's like, hey, it's not there yet. But people worked so hard. So it's like, don't worry, it's going to be next week. People working hard for the next week,
Exactly.
and it's still not there yet. But they already made a lot of work and moved forward. So yeah, that's how it's going to be actually in 10 years from now, because people worked very hard, did sprints,
Totally.
sprinted like a week for a
Yep.
week, and that was
Yep.
what brings it, right? At the same time, yeah, it's like,
Exactly.
if it didn't have, without those sprints, it would be in 50 years or never. But that's part of the vision.
Right.
And because we just crossed the 30 minutes mark, let me ask you the last question, and we can use it as a segue of vision or whatever that is. And that's the same question I'm asking everyone.
Sure.
Can you give us a recommendation? It can be a life hack, a book, a movie, or just an idea or an observation about life.
All right, I'll give you two.
Oh my God.
Two quick ones.
So excited.
My life hack is breakfast salad.
It's a what?
That if you eat breakfast salad, get up in the morning and instead of eating toast, eat a salad. Just put a bunch of arugula and berries and nuts and something in a bowl and eat that, and then you're already set for the day. You can eat like crap the rest of the day, and you've already, you set yourself up for success, right? My real suggestion is our first investor was Michael Seibel, who was the CEO of Y Combinator. And I'll always just appreciate him so much for taking a bet on my wacky idea and my terrible pitch, as he described in our first conversation. And, there's so much value, I think, for companies doing a program like YC, but so few companies can get in, right, or have access to it. And also, I think some founders don't want to make the exchange, right, the equity exchange. So I think the thing that's always really jumped out to me is that they've democratized all that information. So you may not get the network, but if you go on YouTube, all of the teachings are there, and they are mind-blowing. And there's just so much there that you would assume, particularly like I had been in venture for 7 years, sat on boards of all these startups, had been in business for 20 years. I thought I knew how to like run a company. I didn't know anything. Right? You don't really know until you do it. And the lessons from YC and the thousands of companies that they've gone through are all online for free. So
fantastic.
That's my hack.
Rashid, thank you very, very much for joining me today. My pleasure. And have an amazing weekend. And we are actually recording this on a Friday. So yes, have an amazing weekend.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. You too. And I really appreciate you doing this. It's awesome to listen to all the different founders.
My pleasure.